Hello and welcome to Friday Live. I'm your host, Strata lawyer Amanda Farmer. We're going out live to the Your Strata Property Facebook page, going out to LinkedIn, going out to YouTube. We are live and crazy. There we go. That's what today is, live and crazy. Welcome, welcome. How has your week in Strata been? If you're coming on in, give me a hello. Let me know how you're doing. I know there are a few of you who haven't been able to tune in for a while, and we're excited about being able to be here today. So am I. It is a gorgeous day out there. I hope that those of you who are on the east coast of the country and went through some wild weather this week, I hope you're all okay. I hope you're safe. I hope your buildings are all right and not leaky or more leaky. I'm here in my country home in Mudgee today and have come back to a very busy town. It's Mudgee Cup horse races this weekend, kicking off today. And whenever there's something like that in town, it is crazy. Pubs are full, B&Bs are full. It is lots of fun, lots of great atmosphere. So good to be coming back to that. I'm saying coming back because just for 24 hours, I was in Sydney, went to Sydney to attend the AGM for my Strata building last night. So flying visit there yesterday and back today. Yes, I'm going to fill you in on some wins. I'm calling them wins from that meeting last night. Wins that I would like to share so that you too perhaps may be able to incorporate some of these commitments, these strategies that I know my community is putting in place to make sure that things run as smoothly as possible, even in challenging situations. So we will definitely be getting into that today. Shana is here saying, hi, I hope you've had a great week. I hope you have too, Shana. Thank you. Leonie's here. Hey, Leonie with a wave. Lovely to see you too. Margaret, wishing me sunshine and fun. Right back at you. Margaret. Vivian is here. How you doing, Vivian? If you're coming in, whether you are on Facebook, you're on LinkedIn, you're on YouTube, give me a hello here. If you are catching the replay, I love seeing those hellos come through later on as well. So feel free to drop me a hi. Let me know where you are, what you've been up to. Perhaps I always like to connect with you here. Jarina is here saying, hello, everybody. Hello to you, Jarina. Good week this week, notwithstanding a bit of quick travel, doing some client work, had a client win this week, bit of a success story that I will share with you. One of my clients has settled a rather hard fought, I'll say, NCAT tribunal proceeding that has been settled without the need to go to a hearing, which was scheduled for this week. So happy days in the lawyer's chambers, offices, and for that client, I'm going to tell you a bit about what that was. Silvestro is here saying, hi, how are you, Silvestro? Kat Matson is here, tuning in from LinkedIn. Hey, Kat, lovely to see you. I know you've had some wins as well that I am aware of, and they are Strata related. We may come back around to those at a future point in one of our broadcasts. I know you're doing some great work with Strata owners. Okay, this week's podcast, popular one. Who was I chatting to? Strata and Property Services Commissioner John Minns joined me to discuss his priorities for the Strata sector. We've titled this episode From Poor Cousin to Priority, the Future of Strata with our Strata Commissioner. And that word, poor cousin, Strata has been a poor cousin to the real estate property services sector. Those words came from John's mouth, and it was welcome recognition that for too long we have been sidelined, that we have been forgotten about, and to have finally, after I think about 3 decades, finally have a Strata commissioner is a good thing. John and I spoke fairly openly about some surprising and not so surprising, I think, aspects of his role. We talked about why he is filling the role of both Strata and Property Services Commissioner. And I asked, did he see a time in the future where there may be some recognition that the job that a Strata Commissioner has to do is so big, so serious, that list of challenges to solve so long that there might be a standalone position for a Strata Commissioner. John explained his view that in the real estate sector generally, we really shouldn't be operating in silos. When purchasers are coming in to a new building, it's important that those who are advising them at that point of purchase, whether that's the real estate agent, the selling agent, the conveyancer, the solicitor, later the strata manager, the strata lawyer, all of those people have a role to play in Strata, and he sees that being both the Property Services Commissioner and being able to contribute to what's happening in the wider sector, as well as the Strata Commissioner, is important for him to be able to serve our sector effectively. So fair point there. And I know many of you have been asking that question. It's why I asked John the question, why can't we just have a bureaucrat who is devoted only to Strata? John's answer is there in the podcast episode. John raised the issue of certain parties who may be manipulating the system in the New South Wales Tribunal. I latched onto that and we talked a bit further about the role of owners corporations in litigation. And this one I can see from the comments on the podcast episode has really hit a nerve with you guys as well, where you've said, thank you, Amanda, for calling out that owners corporations are really in this very powerful position when it comes to litigation in Strata. They have the money, they have the time, they have the knowledge, they're able to engage the lawyers, and they really have no obligation, or see that they have no legal obligation to do anything when it comes to the repair and maintenance of common property until they are ordered to do so by the tribunal. And some buildings are alive to that. And some buildings, I see it when I act for lot owners, are abusing that particular power. I'm just looking out my window here because someone started mowing the lawn. And it better not be my husband, because he'll be in trouble later for interrupting our Friday live. So I'm not sure if you can hear that noise out there. Could be a neighbor. The joys of suburban country living, just how it goes. Sean O'Day is here saying, hi, hope you have a good week. Hope you've had a good week too. Sean, hey, Angela, lovely to see you. It is a happy Friday indeed. So, John Min's discussion, that's not all of it. Head over and check out that podcast episode. You might also want to have a look at the comments that are coming through on the website underneath that episode. Some strong opinions there. Stephen has commented on the episode. There's a long comment. Head over and read it. I think there's a link here for you in the notes. Stephen saying, if Minzy wants a professional future for Strata, then he needs to unlicense most of the current industry to start with and rebuild from a new model, because the current one doesn't work. Stephen's getting support for that comment. Owen was jumping in there, agreeing, saying you're spot on. The current system needs a drastic overhaul. The present system's open to manipulation, says Owen. It's a joke. Nobody wants to get involved in it. It needs a shake-up from the bottom up. And in the meantime, it's an easy pick for corruption. So some strong words there from listeners who have tuned in, heard what our Strata and Property Services Commissioner, John Minns, has had to say about his plans, his role, what he intends to do during his time. And we shall see. We shall see if Stephen and Owen, if what you're predicting there plays out. But it was good to have the opportunity to have John come and have a chat. And he's actually given an email address. An email address, that inbox must be looking pretty scary. An email address where you can send your questions, your experiences, your comments. Stephen and Owen may want to send your comments directly to the Strata Commissioner about your thoughts on his role, what you're experiencing. It's essential that his office, his department hears from you what you're experiencing on the ground as owners. Leonie is saying, agree, perhaps agreeing there with Stephen and Owen's comments on the state of the strata sector. Hey, Diane, lovely to see you tuning in. Welcome. Daryl made it. You made it. I saw your post earlier on the page, Daryl, saying you've missed Fridays for the last few weeks because of client commitments, but you've switched off the inbox and you've ignored it. You skipped the meeting and you're here, which is awesome. Great to see you. Zlata has had an experience with a corrupt strata committee, changed consent orders. Okay, not sure what's going on there, Zlata. Evie made it too. Good to see you here, Evie. Welcome, welcome. So I mentioned at the top of the chat here that one of my clients had a win this week. I'm going to protect that client's privacy, but I know that this person does tune in and is a big supporter of what we do here. My client is a resident owner who has been suffering smoke drift in the apartment. Smoke drift from a neighbor immediately next door. And here's the interesting thing about this case, it wasn't just cigarettes, but also incense. And from the time that the smoke drift and the nuisance from the smoke drift got called out by my client, and there started to be correspondence about it, and ultimately tribunal proceedings commenced to try and stop the nuisance. From that time, the incense got worse. And it seemed to be that incense was being used, from my client's point of view, to cover up the smell, the offensive nature of the cigarette smoke. So I'm not sure if anybody here has experienced that before, strata managers, whether you get complaints about drift from things like incense. But it sent me into, as it did my client, into a lot of research about the impacts of incense, about health effects and respiratory disorders that may arise from being exposed to fumes from incense. So it's a thing. It's a thing. And before the tribunal, in our legal submissions, we were arguing that both the cigarette smoke drift and also the drift from the incense needed to stop, and that they each comprised a nuisance. Now, I've said that the case was settled. It was settled one business day before a one-day hearing, and it was settled with orders being entered by consent that the neighbor must not smoke on their balcony, must not burn incense on their balcony. So not sure if that's a first for orders in our tribunal, orders that incense must not be burned on a balcony, but those orders have been made, much to my client's happiness and relief, without the need to go through a long, expensive day's hearing involving cross-examination of many witnesses. I said it was a hard-fought case. There were subpoenas issued on numerous occasions, not by my client. There were about 4 witnesses who were due to be in the box to be cross-examined. And ultimately, the right result was achieved just a day before the hearing. Sean is saying that's why Catholics can't sing, because of the incense. Well, perhaps. I don't know, Sean. Personal opinion there, perhaps. Cheryl's here saying hello with flowers. Thank you very much for those flowers, Cheryl. So that was the success story for my client this week. I know that my client's been very happy about that and got a lot of support from this community here, from the members inside our online membership community. This person was posting in the forum about the experience each step of the way and explaining where the proceedings were at, what the other party, the pressure that the other party was placing on my client and the family. I'm trying hard not to tell you what my client's gender is here. You might be picking this up. And I know that my client was really grateful for that. Somewhere else where my client received a fair amount of support, or someone else, I should say, was from Brenton Pittman and Lynette Cartwright. You might remember those names. Brenton has been a guest on the podcast previously. I know Brenton and Lynette tune in to live as well. And you may remember these names because of the case of Pittman and Newport. And that was the very detailed, very helpful decision that was made by our tribunal about 12 months ago now. Orders were made that a lot owner could not smoke on their balcony and could not smoke anywhere in their lot that would allow smoke drift to pass from their lot to Brenton and Lynette's lot. A lot of media about that when that case came out, right up in the Sydney Morning Herald about that. And I know that Brenton and Lynette have been very committed to continuing to share their story. Again, very hard fought case that was defended, did go to a final hearing, did have orders made by the tribunal, and a very detailed decision that is now incredibly helpful, incredibly important for other residents who are in a similar situation suffering from nuisance smoke drift. It was certainly a case that was heavily relied on in our legal submissions with my client who has just been successful. And Brenton was very much a personal support. Brenton and Lynette were very much a personal support for my client as well. During the course of communications over the last few months with Brenton and Lynette about this issue, Brenton has shared with me an article that came from Toronto in Canada, where there are residents who are suffering from cigarette smoke drift, and they don't have the laws, they don't have the legal framework in that part of Canada to be able to deal with the issue in the same way that we can here. So, interesting article. Brenton was actually quoted by the Canadian journalist. Link here for you for anyone who is interested in following this issue and interested in our cross-jurisdictional approaches to multi-owned properties, the governance of multi-owned properties. It's acknowledged in that article that while secondhand smoke is a known health concern, there is little in the way of protecting people. The Smoke Free Ontario Act apparently prohibits smoking in cars, smoking within 9 meters of a hospital entrance, but there is nothing in there that would support tenants or people who are living in what they call in Canada condominiums. Very little support for those who are sharing common spaces. And so the Canadian people who were featured in that article are lobbying the City of Toronto to create bylaws to help address the health of homeowners. And there's a comment in that article that this is bizarre in Canada because Canada was a leader at one point. They were the first country to ban smoking on airplanes to protect others. But this issue of secondhand smoke in dwellings remains a large gap across Canada, especially in Ontario, where they have a lot of high density, multi-unit dwellings. So Brenton and Lynette's case is featured in that article explaining, hey, look, over in Australia, in New South Wales, they actually have laws that directly address this. You can have bylaws that prevent this. And there's actually been success in our tribunal where one owner has prevented their neighbour from smoking in their own home, which is a big deal. So thank you, Brenton, for sharing that particular article, for continuing to share your story, for supporting people like my client who has just had a win, who I think a lot of the trauma that is associated with this experience and with litigating with your neighbors can be reduced when you feel that you have support, whether it's support from others in your building, whether it's support from others who've been through this type of situation before. It's just so important to be able to offer that support, to tap into that support. And I know that my client got great strength from having that support from Brenton and Lynette. So part of the reason I love this community, it's part of the reason that I show up to connect with you all and make sure that there is a place for you to connect with others. We do that inside our online membership community, inside our forum. And thank you for showing up and being here to create the space that helps that happen. Vivian saying, yes, please, for the link. Yes, so that link I think is now there in the comments. You can go over and check out that article. Michael saying, first time listening. Excellent. Thank you, Michael. Excellent to have you here. Heading back down to these hellos. Zlata saying she knows a Canadian strata owner who says it's very corrupt there and many problems we have. Yeah, I know in British Columbia, I'm not sure about Ontario, but British Columbia in particular, are very similar strata laws to what we have in New South Wales. So we do have many professionals have a close relationship with our fellow Canadians. And indeed, Brent Anderson from Canada has been a guest previously on the podcast. You can check out my chat with him, strata manager over there in British Columbia. Petra is here saying, good afternoon, Amanda and listeners. Great to have you with us, Petra. Okay. Who got my email this afternoon? Who saw that subject line? Yes, indeed. I would love to talk to you all today about last night. What happened last night? I've said that I made a flying visit to Sydney to attend the AGM, annual general meeting, for my own building, a building where I used to live. I don't live there anymore, but I still own in that building, and I am lucky enough to visit regularly and stay there while I am in Sydney. So I certainly keep a close connection with other resident owners in that building. And I'm on the Strata committee. It's a building that I have a community that I've been part of since 2018, so about 5 years, going on nearly 6 years now. And it's funny, when I first joined this community, like most strata lawyers and maybe strata managers as well, I tried to fly under the radar. And I said to myself, I mostly said to my family, to my husband, to my son, not going to do it, not going to get involved. Who wants to knock off work to go lay bricks, right? Which strata lawyer, which strata manager really wants to be on their strata committee or to be directly involved in the day-to-day management of their own home or even their own investment? That position lasted for approximately 5 seconds. That was about it. And I remember the day that I was in the lift and one or two owners had come in and we were chit-chatting. Oh, you're the new residents in unit blah. Yes, indeed. And a bit of back and forth, I think, about a meeting that was coming up. And I just like vomited it out. I don't know. I can't help myself. It's like, just happens. I'm a strata lawyer. Oh, you're a strata lawyer. Oh, well, let us tell you what's happening. We need your help. We need your help. Please come. Please come to our next meeting. Please come and help. Please come and help us. Let us fill you in. Can't resist. So I think it was the next AGM. No, actually, there was a vacancy on the committee and I was corralled into the committee. And the beautiful thing about this community, and the reason why I've been on the committee for the last 5 years, and I continue to devote time, energy to making sure that this building can be the best it can be, is because of the people. There's a lot of long-term owners who are there in this building, who have been there since, well, their parents have been there since the development came off the plan, and second generation owners who've been there for many, many decades. And it really is a close-knit community. You may have seen here on the page and on Instagram last weekend, a couple of weekends ago, I was there and somebody got married. One of the tenants got married in our back common garden, which is just gorgeous. I don't know how many strata buildings where that has happened, but beautiful moments like that. So it's a fabulous community to be part of. However, I don't have rose-colored glasses on, and I am committed, as you saw in my email today, to radical transparency. And that starts with saying, this community is not without its problems, not without its challenges. And I share that with you because it's so important to me that you know that I am in the trenches with you. I know what it is to sit on a strata committee where not everybody agrees, to go to a general meeting where there are some tough decisions to be made. There is money to be raised. There is litigation to commence or defend. There are insurance premiums that are going through the roof. There are levies that need to go up. There are serious maintenance issues that need to be addressed. There are owner complaints that need to be responded to. I have firsthand experience of that, not just with clients who are going through that process, but as an owner, as a committee member myself. And that's important to me that I share that with you. I don't have the perfect community. I don't always have all of the answers, but together we are all finding our way. And that is something that the Strata committee that I'm part of in this building and the community in this building has been doing for the last few years, finding its way. And that's what I want to share a bit of detail with you about today. When I joined this committee in about 2018, I could see pretty quickly, just because of my expertise, that some of the governance issues, lack of governance protocols, was causing some problems. The strata manager that the building had at the time was fairly old fashioned, I think it's fair to say. And it didn't take too long before I was making a few suggestions. And they're suggestions that, to this community's credit, were very well received and that we have continued to run with and are now seeing the flow on effects of putting some of these important practices in place. So a new strata manager was appointed after the then current strata manager's contract expired. And one of the biggest things, most important things that I insisted on when I joined the committee was that there be regular, compliant strata committee meetings. Some of you may have been able to guess that, may have been able to guess that that is one of the ways, and I say the most important way, that you can ensure transparency in your communities. And I'm going to talk about why transparency is so important, just in case I haven't got anyone on board, or I haven't got all of you on board here with why we need to be transparent about what's going on in our communities. So we started to put into place this process of having regular strata committee meetings. And I say compliant meetings. What do I mean? There is a formal notice of strata committee meeting. That notice is sent to all owners. There is an agenda. The strata manager attends the meeting and chairs the meeting. Yes, that's an extra cost, but it's incredibly helpful to have the professional strata manager there chairing the meeting, taking the minutes, and the minutes are issued to all owners. So that's something that a number of years ago we started to do. Without breaching the privacy of my fellow owners, I can say that the challenges that have faced us over the last 5 or 6 years have included some litigation and some expenses associated with that, some expensive remedial work to do. And yes, it's waterproofing work. The Design and Building Practitioners Act needs to be followed. There's the extra time and the extra expense involved in that I know many of you are frustrated by. Yes, the insurance premium is up. This year it's up 30%. 30% on last year. Big jump, big unbudgeted jump in the insurance premium. But at least we can get insurance. And I know there are buildings out there who are struggling to get insurance. And of course, all round expenses are up just because that is the world that we are living in at the moment. So I think all of those challenges would be fairly common these days among our modern buildings and those who are engaged in your communities. These won't be surprises to you. Jan is saying our strata committee has vote-only meetings, so no owners are allowed to attend. Are you saying that's pre-meeting voting there, Jan, or paper meetings? Yeah, I think that's a real problem and certainly not on the path to transparency. Jan is saying, does the notice required to be given include weekends? So proper notice of committee meetings, 3 days notice. And yes, it can include weekends. It doesn't have to be business days for those 3 days notice, Jan. That's in New South Wales. Okay, yeah, Jan's saying paper voting only. So giving you some more of a feel around the context into which owners, committee members were going into this AGM that was happening last night in my building. There have in recent times, been a couple of owners who have got hold of the Strata role, which they're perfectly entitled to do. As you know, I teach, and sent some emails. Got into the practice of every now and then sending some emails to all other owners. And in these emails, putting forward what I'm going to call an intentionally disruptive version of events. And one of those emails was circulated about a week before the AGM. It was sent late at night. It was not sent to committee members. It was sent to other owners. Of course, within the hour, it made its way to committee members. And it included factually incorrect information. It was obviously designed to frighten owners and to encourage them to question the faith and the trust that they had placed in their strata committee to make good decisions, the right decisions in their interests. And it was strategically sent a week or so before the AGM. So you can imagine some of you may have been in this situation going into an AGM where there is this undercurrent of conflict. There is this question around what was said in this email. Was this correct? What's going on? The intention of this person to be disruptive, you can see that taking hold. Ahead of the meeting, the Strata Committee issued a letter, detailed letter, both in the form of a committee annual report and also in part of that letter addressing the false allegations that had been made in that earlier communication. So heading into the meeting, owners did, if they read their emails, and many owners don't, if they read their emails, had essentially both versions or two versions of events. So last night, we turn up to the meeting. We have this undercurrent of emotion, of nervousness, of conflict, of questions, of being on guard. Let's say I always use the words. I got my flak jacket on. You know, I'm ready. I got my bulletproof vest on. I'm ready for this, and it's something that I do as a strata lawyer regularly, going to meetings in this kind of context with this kind of vibe. But I'm usually getting paid for it. Okay, so I'm usually getting paid for it and don't have a personal emotional interest. And that's something that I think strata lawyers, lawyers in general, strata managers should be really conscious of when they are acting in the position of a committee member and essentially wearing that committee member's hat and not wearing the hat of the strata manager or the strata lawyer. And that's something that I've had to get good at over the years, to recognize that here I am, a committee member, not the strata lawyer for the building. Okay, I'm just distracted by those comments at the moment. And we'll just keep a close moderation there, Rochelle and Mina, if we need to, and stay on track. Now, as I said in my email this afternoon, to perhaps the committee's surprise, not so much my surprise because I knew that we'd done the work beforehand, everything went very smoothly at this AGM. The AGM actually went for 40 minutes, less than. I think I made a note, 38 minutes. The AGM went for. This was a general meeting in person. Yes, all of the standard motions on the agenda. Yes, budget to be approved. Yes, increased insurance premium to talk about. And yes, a renovation works bylaw was on the agenda as well. But all went through very, very smoothly. I think I saw a comment earlier from, did I see a comment from you, Kareem? I wish my AGM this week only took 40 minutes. Yeah. How long did yours take? Let me know. Why was it so quick? Why did we find that the vocal minority was not able to derail proceedings? I believe it's because of this community's commitment made a number of years ago to radical transparency. Now, I use this term radical transparency, acknowledging that being transparent and honest and clear and open and accessible in a strata community should not be radical. This should not be a radical concept, but it is. And I know that it is because I know that the owners that I work with every day, the members inside our online community that I'm answering questions for in our forum every day, you who are here on live on Friday, what you are telling me is the problems that you're experiencing all stem, in my professional opinion, all stem from this lack of transparency in your communities. And that if only more committees and more committee members were aware of, were able to, were willing to engage in this process of radical transparency, they would avoid so many problems for themselves. Let me tell you what I'm talking about when I'm referring to radical transparency. Here are 3 things that my strata community, my strata committee on which I sit, 3 things that we do to ensure radical transparency. We didn't always do these things, but we definitely do these things now. And it is a reason why our AGM went for 40 minutes last night, notwithstanding attempts by some, I acknowledge, unhappy owners to derail the proceedings. I said this earlier, we have regular strata committee meetings. That's the number one most important thing that we do to ensure radical transparency. We ensure that the notice of the committee meeting goes out to all owners. We don't have to do that. We're not a large building, but we actually ask our strata manager to send the notice of committee meeting out to all owners at their address for service. We hold our meetings online so that all owners have the opportunity to attend. Most don't. Most don't attend, but some do. Some do, and they listen. Very rarely need to say anything, very rarely ask to say anything, but they listen, and in that way, they are kept up to date on what is happening inside the community. When I say regular strata committee meetings, every 6 weeks to 2 months, depending on what's going on in the building. The minutes of those meetings definitely go out to all owners. That is a legal requirement in a building of less than 100 lots. I'm just going to pause there, and I'm just going to ask Rochelle and Mina to do what they need to do to just make sure that our comments that are happening here on Facebook remain on track. Minutes going out to all owners, absolutely essential that that happens with your strata committee meetings. So that's the number one most important thing that my community is doing, and I recommend that your community does to ensure radical transparency. Second thing, regular written reports from the committee to all owners. I say regular, at least annually, a written report from the committee ahead of the annual general meeting goes out with the agenda, or maybe goes out shortly after the agenda has been issued. This report is the highlights from the year. What's been going on? What are the updates? What do owners really need to pay attention to? What's the status of any litigation? What's the status of any expensive repair work, remedial work that everybody's been waiting for? Have those quotes come in yet? If there's something controversial happening in the building, address it head on in these regular reports. I know some communities are doing this regularly with a monthly newsletter, which is amazing. Not something that my community does yet. Bit of a big ask at the moment, but certainly on an annual basis, there is a committee report. And we have been told when we introduced this by owners that that was a welcome addition, and how helpful that was to be going into an AGM, getting the key points of what's gone on during the year. I'm usually the author of that report. It gets signed off by the committee, but I make sure to address the budget in there as well, to explain if levies are increasing, how they're increasing, what they're increasing by, and why, what's being planned for, and focusing on the future capital works and the improvements to the building that are going to be made, and why it is that we're raising levies in the amount that we're raising it. Budget questions take up so much time. They take up so much time at an AGM. And I think if you can address expected questions about the budget before they come up, you're going to be steps ahead. And strata managers, you know what these questions are going to be. Committee members, I think you know as well, when you look at the comparison from last year's spend or last year's budget to what's projected for this year, do you have to explain a 20% increase in the strata management fees? I attended a meeting a few weeks ago for a client who was renewing their strata management contract, or there was a motion on the agenda to renew the strata management contract. And the budget had a figure in there that was twice the amount for strata management fees. The strata management fees were doubling when compared to last year's. And strata manager hadn't said anything about that. Committee hadn't said anything about that. My client instructed me to say something about that. And when I did, many owners said, "What in the world? Why are our strata management fees doubling?" And the explanation that was given by the manager, even the committee didn't know, so they wasn't aware until it was pointed out to them. So they weren't able to give an explanation. But when the explanation was given by the strata manager, it was not a sufficient explanation in the eyes of that group of owners. That strata manager's contract was not renewed. So don't go into these meetings when you know that you have these big changes in budget, big changes in expenses. You have work that's been on the boil for many years and hasn't been completed. There is litigation that's ongoing, and owners want to know what's going on. Don't go in ignoring those issues. Address them head on ahead of the meeting. And you'd be surprised. Well, you might not be surprised. When I do these things, I'm not surprised because I've seen it play out many times previously, that owners are so much more comfortable, so grateful that they have the information. And even if it's things that I want to hear, even if it's painful, costs are increasing, the fact that it has been explained to them and that they're prepared for it means that you take that conflict, that surprise, that discomfort out of the conversation. So, regular written reports from the committee, that's the second thing that I recommend and that my community does when we are carrying out our role of being what I call radically transparent. And the third thing that we do, we give the opportunity for those who are present at a meeting, whether it's a general meeting, whether it's a strata committee meeting, give them the opportunity to talk, to have their voice heard, to have their questions answered. So last night was a good example where there was not a motion on the agenda to discuss some litigation that had been ongoing. No motion on the agenda about that. But an owner put their hand up and said, "Can we please have an update from the committee as to how that's going?" And for legal reasons, we weren't able to put a lot in writing about that so as not to waive any privilege that we have between us and our lawyer. But at the time when that owner put their hand up, we were able to, members of the litigation subcommittee were able to answer questions and talk in a bit more detail about what was going on. And in that way, directly addressing the what I call fake news that was coming from the building's opponents, directly addressing that, explaining why that wasn't correct, and giving the accurate, up-to-date side of the story. And too often I see communities shy away from those conversations. Not going to talk about litigation, not going to talk about lawyers, not going to talk about advice that we've been given. It's all hush hush. Remove those documents from the owners' corporation's books and records. You're doing yourself a disservice. You're doing yourself a disservice when you do that, because you are leaving space in the minds of other owners, and it is space that will be filled with misinformation. It is space that the building's opponents in litigation, for example, or those that may have agendas that are not in the best interests of the whole building, those that have other self-interested agendas, you're leaving space for them to fill with information that is unhelpful, that with information that is designed to sabotage the good work that a committee might be doing. And it is your duty, I say, as committee members, to not leave that space, to make sure that owners are armed with all of the right information to be able to understand why you as a committee are making the decisions you're making, why you are incurring the expenses that you might be incurring. And this is what it all comes down to, right? Why are we paying our lawyers this much money? Why is our legal bill this much? Why is this litigation still ongoing? You know those questions are going to come up. So giving giving the answers before the questions are asked is great. That was my second suggestion. But thirdly, if those questions come up, giving the space for them to be asked and for them to be answered. And I acknowledge that sometimes that can't happen in a room where the opponent in litigation is in the room, but it is entirely open to a committee to convene a separate informal meeting, um, a type of in the past I've called them sort of town hall meetings, where you might have everybody attend to be able to discuss the litigation, and where you are preserving your legal professional privilege, then you are entitled to exclude from that conversation and from that meeting the opponent in litigation. So you say, look, we're only going to be discussing the litigation. We want to be able to discuss the legal advice that we've been given. So this is a meeting that you should not attend as the opponent in litigation. So there are ways. There are ways to do that. Something that I have said before in my community is that where we've received legal advice, legal opinions, and those don't get circulated as a matter of course in order to preserve that legal professional privilege, I've made very clear, been careful to make very clear to owners that they are entitled to see those documents, and that by contacting me or by contacting our strata manager, they will be provided with all of those documents. And I see it as a protection mechanism for me as a committee member, especially when I also separately, not in my community, but separately wear the hat of a strata lawyer. I see it as a protection mechanism to make sure that owners are aware that I'm not giving this advice. The committee is not giving this advice. The committee is following the legal advice that it is being given by the owners corporation's lawyer. And all owners are contributing to the cost of that lawyer. They are all entitled to see that advice, except for the owner that is suing the owners corporation or being sued by the owners corporation, the opponent in litigation. And I've seen it happen. I've seen it play out numerous times. I see it when I say this to my clients, when owners who are unsure, owners who are believing the fake news that might be coming through, owners who are not quite confident or comfortable with the steps the committee is taking, when they see the legal advice, when they see that the committee is doing what the lawyers are suggesting they do, when they see the lawyers break down what the issues are and why perhaps it's not as clear cut or it's not heading along the path that owners want it to head. It's not the committee that is the one standing in the way or causing the problem or causing the expense. It is a helpful, call it objective, even though we're talking about the lawyer for the owners corporation, but objective professional who is making very clear what the position is. And it takes that emotion out of it. It's not your neighbor who's relaying the information to you. It's a really great way to make sure that your committee is rising above any criticism, avoiding even any criticism that may be made of the way it conducts itself and the way it's conducting litigation on the part of an owners corporation. Heading over to these comments, Leonie saying, great advice. Amanda, thank you very much. Leonie. Vivian saying, OMG, pity we couldn't have one of you on our committee. You do. This is the thing, Vivian. You do have me. I'm here. I'm sharing this information with you because I want to try and be as best I can that voice of guidance, that voice of reason, if you like, that is there for your committee, giving you the steps. You can take all of this on board and you can implement as best you can. I know some of you have struggles, challenges with being able to do this within your own committees. But to the extent you can take this information. It's why I share it here with you. Evie saying, I agree. Why is this not obvious? Yep. It's why I have to use words like radical. This is radical stuff. I think it is in our space. I have to be careful about this because as a lawyer dealing with conflict, I deal with the worst situations. And there's many, John Min said it on our podcast this week. There's 89,000 strata schemes in the state. The few that strata lawyers are dealing with is the minority. There are many out there that are functioning well. But of those that I see come across my desk that owners are a part of, that are struggling to get them to comply with their legal obligations, most of them are completely lacking in any kind of transparency. And it is how resentment festers. It is how stories get made up. It is how blast emails that get sent by an unhappy owner get traction, because there's no other story being told. There's no other information that is seen as objective, as disinterested, that is being circulated. And when you leave that space, it's going to get filled. It's going to get filled with troubled and troublesome material. Margaret saying, thanks, Amanda. Great space. Thank you, Margaret. Jirina saying, ideal world. However, the reality is different. Apathy to move forward. Yes, I know, Jirina, that many communities suffer from owner apathy. As owners, you have more, especially in the modern day, you do have more say, more control, more ability to engage than I think you've ever had before. If online meetings are happening, please be going. Please be going to your meetings and listening in, and even making these suggestions to your strata committee. Share this video with your strata committee, with your strata manager, with those who you think are in the position to be able to change the way that things are done. Encourage them to take up one of, if not all of, these 3 suggestions. Regular strata committee meetings. Get the notice out to all owners. Invite them all to attend. I said it again to owners last night. You are all welcome. You are all welcome to attend our strata committee meetings. Issue regular written reports, even if it's just an annual report from the strata committee to owners, and provide space and a forum for owners to speak and to ask questions, and for committee members to respond to those questions. And the thing about providing space, whether it's in the format of a committee meeting and telling owners, come to the meeting, here's the notice, here's the minutes, or it's saying, we're going to have a town hall style discussion, come and join us. I appreciate that where there's apathy, there will be many owners who just don't turn up, don't come. It's certainly not the majority of owners who attend our committee meetings. It might be 1 or 2 who are not otherwise on the committee. But when you have these procedures in place, it positions you so well as a committee member to be able to say, when you are criticized, when owners say, we didn't know about that, when owners say, when was that decision made? You can point to exactly the meeting where that decision was made. You can point to exactly the meeting where the expenditure was approved, where the lawyers were engaged. You can point to the date on which an owner was invited to come to a town hall community meeting to be able to listen in. And you can say, you had that opportunity and you made the decision not to be there. And whenever I've been able to say that to someone in a room, in a general meeting situation, they immediately quieten, because that's right. They had the opportunity to be there. They had the opportunity to be engaged and to learn, and they declined that opportunity. So even where owners are apathetic, just that strategy of creating those opportunities can really position you, protect you as committee members when you are criticized for making certain decisions. And it happens all the time. Happens all the time, even the most functional of communities, that owners say, I didn't know, when did it happen? It's wonderful to be able to say, have a look at motion 2.3 of the Strata committee meeting on the 12th of April, and have a look in your inbox where you received an invitation to attend that meeting. Kareem saying, I was trying to channel you, Amanda, this week during our 2-hour, 45-minute meeting. Yeah. Don't know if I came in, if I came through the transmission there, Kareem, and if I was able to be helpful. 2 hours and 45 minutes. It's long, but it ain't the longest. It ain't the longest that I've attended. It was past 9 p.m. I think the last online meeting that I attended for a client, and I think we started at 5:30. 1 hour on one motion. Yes. I'm not sure if that's the motion that you were updating me about in my inbox earlier today, Kareem, but if you did spend an hour on that motion, it was well spent, and we might be able to have a more public chat about that soon. So with these strategies that I have assisted to implement in my community over a number of years, okay, over a number of years, this doesn't happen overnight, over a number of years, we are starting to see how the spread of fake news stops. Actually, last night, the person who had shared some inaccurate information apologized to owners for sharing that information. Uh, that was a win, definitely. It ensures ongoing trust and faith in the committee. A strata committee has a duty to act with due diligence, to act in everybody's best interest. The best interest, I think the wording in the legislation is the best interest of the owner's corporation. That is not one particular owner. That is not the best interest of the owner who is suing the owner's corporation because of something that they're alleged not to have done. The committee is constantly having to think about what are the best interests of the owner's corporation. And sometimes it is in an owner's corporation's best interest to defend litigation, to spend money on legal fees, to spend money on getting legal advice, to spend money on doing work on the building. It's a legal obligation to repair and maintain the common property. So where you have these processes implemented where you are being transparent about your role, the decisions you're making, and why you're making them, then it's much easier for owners to understand why they may have to suffer the pain of increased expenses or ongoing litigation. When you have a community that is able to move past, rise above, I'm going to say, rise above a situation of high conflict and place trust in their strata committee, then you can focus on more important things. You can focus on what I call more fun things, investing in improvements to the building. Last night, we were able to have a discussion about the installation of solar panels. Yay! Something that I've been wanting to do for many years. The installation of solar on our roof that is just ripe for solar. We're looking at re-waterproofing the roof. It's the perfect time. It is the time to consider the installation of solar. And we were able to have that discussion because the meeting proceeded along a way that the conflict that others and disruption that others attempted to introduce was very quickly nipped in the bud. So we had the room to focus on those more positive things. And as I said in a podcast recording that I did yesterday and that will come out in a couple of weeks' time, when you are a committee that can be focused on those positive things, can be delivering some positive outcomes in the midst of what seems like constant expense and constant challenge and constant bad news, if you can be delivering some positive stuff as well, that is only going to send your your vote, your points, your scale, your reputation as committee members through the roof, and really entrench, secure that feeling of trust and confidence that owners have in you as committee members. 6-hour AGM for Diane. Oh, that's like start at 6 and finish at midnight. Oh, that's awful, Diane. Sean's saying ridiculous, don't you think? Karen's saying it is the duty of each member of a strata committee of an owner's corporation to carry out his or her functions for the benefit, so far as practicable, of the owner's corporation and with due care and diligence. Excellent. Thank you very much, Karen, for pulling that from the legislation for me. Diane saying it was a record. It was a record. Angela is saying, I would love to be able to discuss installing solar. Those are the discussions that I thought would be difficult here. Wow, little did I know, right? You're having some other difficult discussions, are you there, Angela? Uh, Speaking of the solar topic, there's going to be a fair bit more coming out through the podcast mainly, and I'll talk about it here on live about EV charging, solar, sustainable infrastructure, resolutions and approvals. I've done a couple of podcast recordings in that area, and I think it's going to be a great way to kick off the new year with some of those good news ideas and some of those positive steps. Some really easy. I've learned from our conversation yesterday, really easy to start implementing in your communities. Karen saying a 10 a.m. to a 5:45 p.m. That was a meeting? Wow. Such are the challenges. Such are the challenges we face. Perhaps I'll start thinking about a topic to bring to you on a Friday for how we can improve the efficiency of decision making. We talked about that last night too in our Strata committee meeting that followed the AGM. How do we reduce the burden on committee members' inboxes? Came up with a few solutions and fasten, quicken Make quicker, increase. Enable us to make quicker decisions. Okay, I think that means it's 5 o'clock, and I've had so many words come out of my mouth that the brain is now stopping of the working. I would love to continue to bring you, and I intend to continue to bring you my own experiences in my own community, from my own committee. There is always something for me to learn, something that I am always learning. And when I learn something, I want to share it with you. As you do when you learn things, you do. You're quick to share them with me. Usually comes in the form of, Amanda, that's not right. Got that wrong. This is right. And I so appreciate that. So I will continue, if it's okay with you, to keep sharing in the spirit of radical transparency. And I encourage you to do the same. Lots of thumbs ups coming from Karen here. Thank you. Jan is saying, thanks very much for today. Have a great weekend. Thank you from Angela. Thank you very much, Angela. I'm going to wrap it up there. I think my lawn is nice and short, nicely mowed now. Great. Enjoy your weekends in Strata, and I'll catch you all here next time. Bye for now.